What's going on, everyone? Brian Manowitz here, the Vegan Black Metal Chef, and today I have an awesome guest. We have Kristof Bathory of Dawn of Ashes. What's going on, Kristof?
Not much, just enjoying my early morning Sunday.
Awesome. And we're here to talk about his most recent album, the Antinomian, and we're going to also get into sort of why he went vegan. You are vegan, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And also sort of a deep dive into the entire creative process, being a musician in 2020, and all sorts of things of that nature. So first off, the Antinomian. If I got to hear the album, and it is solid, dancey, industrial EBM. And how would you describe the Antinomian for everyone?
I think there was a point, because with Dawn of Ashes, we kind of went full like extreme metal at one point, and a lot of the older Dawn of Ashes fans were like, what the fuck? So, I think there was a point where I decided that I wanted to incorporate what we used to do back into the creativity of Dawn of Ashes. But I feel like with the Antinomian, it's more of a, I guess it captures the sound of industrials from maybe the 90s or early 2000s. And I guess I would classify it as EBM or just industrial. I don't know if I would kind of put it in the agrotech sort of name. That's still kind of like a weird name to me. But because I don't see it the same sort of sound as what we did in the beginning. I think it's kind of something new. But yeah, it is dancey, industrial, but it also has like metal elements to it.
No, absolutely. It's solid. It doesn't disappoint whatsoever. If you're a fan of older Dawn of Ashes at all, or if you have not heard them yet and just getting into it now, and you like dancey industrial stuff, this album absolutely does not disappoint. Fantastic production overall, and
Thank you.
And yeah, just a solid album. And yeah, and like going back to what you said, where you had sort of changed your style for a bit. But honestly, like to me, I think we're going to see a lot more bands in general incorporating more styles and different things that are just them in their totality, instead of making like a side project for this and a side project for that. I think more bands are just going to start being unapologetically themselves, and you might get an album that is slightly different genre-wise, but still probably concordant with what a lot of those people enjoy, anyways. And
Right.
And then you get others. What's sort of your thoughts on mashing up genres and whatnot?
I think the first approach kind of had its pros and cons when we did it back in 2010, where we kind of just went full-blown metal. It kind of I remember hearing people thought that there was two different Dawn of Ashes. There was this Dawn of Ashes metal band, and then the Dawn of Ashes agrotech, industrial, whatever you want to call it. And I understand where that was coming from, because it was just like two different sounds. And I think the problem is that I didn't keep what we were and incorporated it with this like newer sound. So I feel like that's what I'm kind of doing now, so that I'm not alienating, the metal fans and the industrial fans. And also, it's just that I'm a huge metal head, and I like metal. I actually like a lot of things. So it's kind of annoying to me as a creator just to kind of stick to one thing all the time.
For sure.
And everybody has this like expectation that the next album is going to sound like this album. So I just feel like every single DOA album is just completely different. And it's just, I feel like it's what I'm influenced by at that time. I remember
Absolutely.
I was really into just death metal and black metal at one point, and then I kind of go through these phases. But it's kind of like I just keep the same formula all the time.
For sure. I personally, I listen to all sorts of metal and I listen to all sorts of industrial. So,
Right.
to me, it's only natural. And yeah, I mean, I have an industrial black metal album and a dancing industrial album as well. And so, yeah, like I think that people should just release what they like, especially in the era of I don't know, more solo artistry or even not solo artistry. And I mean, I think a lot of people in those genres like each things from those genres. So
Yeah, and they're two genres that, I mean, in my opinion, they blend.
yeah,
If it's done right, it blends pretty well.
yeah, no, absolutely. And so you're vegan as well. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and sort of your why you went vegan story.
So in the late 90s, I guess I can start out. In my later years of high school, all my friends were straight edge, and a lot of them were vegan. So I was kind of surrounded by it. I was kind of more at that time, like, doing drugs and smoking, but all my friends were straight edge. So I grew up kind of surrounded by the hardcore scene, and it's just been kind of surrounded by me for a long time. And there was a period in my life where I had a really bad, I mean, I've had a lot of periods where I had drinking problems and I wasn't taking care of myself. And well, let me go back to in the hardcore days. I got really into being a militant vegan at one point where I was just like strongly against animal cruelty. Not saying I'm not that way now, but I was just like, one of those people that passed pamphlets out and told people the reality of how shit is when it comes to, animal cruelty and killing. And then there was a point where I wasn't vegan, and then I was really like not taking care of myself, eating really bad. Believe it or not, I was like 260 something pounds, just eating whatever, just garbage, fast food, anything. Yeah. And I just was like, fuck, man, like I'm not taking care of myself. So I kind of went back to the vegan lifestyle to kind of be like a discipline towards my life. And then it's just been kind of an on and off thing for me. And now it's been just a thing in my life where it's like, people are like, oh, you're vegan. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really just go around classifying. I just don't like eating meat. I don't like dairy. It's just been kind of like part of my lifestyle now. It's a hard lifestyle, but I mean, it's just been kind of something that's been with me for a long time. And I just don't have any desire to eat meat or eat dairy anymore.
For sure. And you're in Los Angeles, correct?
Yeah.
And yeah, Los Angeles is like the smorgasbord of ridiculously amazing vegan spoiled things, right?
Right. And I mean, it's like, it's funny. It's that, because I also grew up in New York, and it's like
the second smorgasbord of ridiculously amazing vegan spoiled things. At least currently.
But not back in the 90s.
Yeah, not back in the day.
In the 90s, it was like no one even knew what veganism was. And it was hard. But I feel like it's like more acceptable now. It's easier. It's like everywhere you go, it's like every restaurant you go, there's like vegan options.
For sure.
So it's definitely hard when you're on tour. Because like you go to areas in certain states and you got a Taco Bell and a KFC and that's it.
For sure. Well, yeah, and yeah, now I guess the Burger Kings now are starting to carry plant-based options, and and hopefully subways, so that Anytown USA becomes less and less of a problem. That I guess is the true benefit of like Beyond Burgers at Carl's Jr. and hopefully the Subway meatball sandwiches soon, and things of that nature. Let's talk about your musical life and creative life. You've been doing this for quite some time, and doing it on a pretty high level for quite some time. What risks throughout your musical life do you feel you've taken that have been the most beneficial for everyone to learn from?
I mean, there's just so much history behind this band. I've made a lot of risks. I've done a lot of mistakes, but every mistake is a learning experience. Even like the whole like complete change to the metal thing. Like it was a bad idea, but a good idea, because a lot came out of it. I think again, the genre swapping is a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge risk. But now it's like you get to a point where you're like, oh, well, I can do both of these things. And I think especially now, I mean, it's being in a band is like just being in a touring band, a signed band is a risk. Everything's a risk. It's a hard industry.
For sure.
You know, for younger people who want to do this and make it as a career, it's like you got to have like really thick skin and understand that it sucks, but it's amazing. It's there's a lot of shit that just sucks about. It's stressful, and you kind of have to deal with it.
No, absolutely. What would you say that some of the things that that maybe turned out to be more learning experiences than paying off, that people can learn from and possibly not repeat?
I think, like, I mean, because every day is a kind of a learning experience for me, even for being in this group for like 20 years. One of the main things for me is kind of just like do what you want to do. Don't ever do things for some other reason, because right now it's like no matter what you do, it's a hard industry. So if you just kind of stick to, you know, what you feel is necessary for your project and what you love, it's going to be rewarding, and just never giving up. I mean, that goes with anything.
For sure. No, I completely concur. That seems to be the one solid thread through many different bands, and myself as well, is just that not giving up. Were there times where you felt like you might give up?
Many, and it's like every time I do it, like, I mean, I remember we did Call Quits at one point, and I was working on a different project at the time, and it's just like it just was like this feeling like, fuck, I don't have this in my life anymore. And I feel like Dawn of Ashes is me. Like it's just something that's me.
Mm-hmm.
And like without that, it doesn't make me.
For sure.
It's so every time I felt like giving up, it was just like, well, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, it's just like, it's like my twin. I like killing off this twin, and then you're like, you know, now what? Now what?
And then it reappears like your shadow again.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm like, okay, keep going.
Do you have any goal setting methods? And if so, what are they?
I mean, there's been so many different goals. Right now, it's just kind of understanding this era that we're living in, because everything is kind of based on social media right now. And honestly, I still don't get it. So I still don't get it. It's just, I think it's the hardest time to be a musician, I think, is right now. Because everything's just based off of Instagram, and I don't even know if it's even Facebook anymore, but it's like Instagram and TikTok, and it's like I personally don't give a shit about any of those things, but it's kind of like you have to.
For sure.
It's one of these things that you have to as a musician, and it's just like, so it's kind of like I'm trying to understand how to be a musician in this kind of social media thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, in terms of the goal setting things, like, do you ever do vision boards, or like, or do you just sort of do near term goals of like, okay, the next step is this, or like mind maps, or any of the like the nitty gritty practical stuff, or is it just all in your head?
I think it's like I write an album, and then we're like, okay, so what are we gonna do once this album gets released? You know, what's the right approach when we go on tour? I mean, it used to be like we would have the whole thing, the theatrical look. We would have that kind of all planned out. Everything would be kind of like based on a theme, and I guess that would be sort of a goal, kind of like we're gonna do with this, what we're gonna do with this album. How are we gonna market this album in the right way? So, but lately it's just kind of like I released this album, then this whole COVID fucking thing happened, and it's just like now we're just like, okay, what do we do? Because we were literally right to go. We were gonna go back on tour. And then it's just like, now what? So now we're just trying to think of like creative things and kind of putting things in people's faces right now, because it's hard.
Yeah, that aspect has completely shifted, and then all the awesome photos that one gets from going on stage and being in the theatrical outfit and whatnot, like then ordinarily that like sort of provides, I guess, a stream of things to be posting on these social media stuff, but you also get the tour aspect, like sort of like to fuel all that, and it's I guess everything is sort of turned upside down, like in that whole pipeline process.
Right. I mean, I think the latest thing that we released was a music video, and there was a lot of controversial material that we put in the video, and we usually have press releases, and a lot of magazines didn't want to release our video because of this controversial material that's in the video, so we kind of had to now do it ourselves. But you know, we got turned down by a lot of magazines and everything because of the material in this video. But you know, I'm stubborn. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not gonna like change this video because these guys don't want to release it. So
what was one of the controversial points in the video?
We put a lot of like truth, the shit that's kind of going on in the world. You know, one of the things was the Floyd, or the the police brutality stuff that we put in the video. And what I don't get is that it's in the news, so
that doesn't sound particularly controversial, honestly. Like, I mean,
I don't know. I didn't get it. You know, it's kind of just throwing in the people's faces what's going on in the world, and I don't understand why. You know.
Which to me is one of the purposes of like extreme music in general, and and possibly one of the few ties to sort of veganism in a sense that some aspects of extreme music have, is just the blatant bucking of social convention and social conditioning, and happily exposing the truth of what exists. And what is there today? And
and I think that's a part about Dawn of Ashes, and it's always been, we're so against censoring shit. It's like, what we release what we want, And if it disturbs people, then so be it. That's part of what we do. And I think it's just such a sensitive time that no matter what you do, it's like, I mean, I feel like the type of music we do, and it's like it's always been about like creating some sort of reaction, and it's either like pissing someone off or fueling the fire to your fans. And I just feel like we're in a time where it's just you're walking on eggshells. Everything is just so sensitive. So it's like, even if like something is already put out into the world, it's like if you do it, it's like the wrong thing to do.
Fair enough. And let's talk about you do things typically with a label, correct? Sort of. I want to hear your thoughts on sort of the pros and cons of doing things with labels versus doing things more independently. I'm not sure if you've dabbled with that at all, or just your experiences, sort of the pros and cons of working with labels and or doing things otherwise.
I mean, I guess that goes back to one of your questions before about, challenges and risks. Being on a label is very risky, and I mean, we've been on many labels, and some labels do more than others, and it's some labels treat you as a number, and you're just kind of like a number within all these other bands, and unless you are like the top band, they don't really do anything for you. So we chose to go on a smaller label because they wanted to invest into putting Dawn of Ashes in the spotlight, putting more exposure. And I feel like being on a label is just about exposure at this point. It's not about, how much money you're going to make, how many CDs you're going to sell. It's about the exposure. Because
they have a pretty established network with either interviews or with concert venues or with booking managers or things of that nature. Is that what you're sort of leveraging with the label?
Yeah, and I mean, we've been on labels where they did nothing. They just, you release a CD.
Thanks for your property.
Release your CD. They kind of talk about it for a week, and then you're just buried. And you're just like, what the fuck is the point of this?
For sure. I mean, did you ever think about doing things independently? I mean, Dawn of Ash's name is fairly well up there in this genre.
Yeah, but I right now the label that we're currently on, they're actually doing something. So I mean, that's kind of rewarding. So I guess it just depends. Depends on what I want to do with an album. Because again, it's about the exposure, and if a label's really gonna invest into exposing the product and the band, I think that's important. So if I had access to do all that, probably.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And yeah, because it's a risk either way. I mean, and I've seen both ways, even from like the book publishing world, kind of doing everything yourself versus going with a publisher. I've been doing both, and there's pros and cons to each. Like
exactly.
And so you got to sort of pick which way you like and go with it.
I think I'm at a point where I'm just I just want to write music, and if someone likes it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And wherever it goes, it goes. And I just kind of lowered my expectations with things, because you kind of have to, because if you have these like high expectations, guaranteed you're just going to get disappointed.
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, I mean that's sort of the artist's journey in general, right? I mean, in the very, very end, you have to have an audience of one, which is yourself. And if the audience of one is not happy with things, then
There's no.
yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, for sure. So what does your writing process look like? Are you a sole writer? Do you hire collaborators? Have there been various collaborators in the past? What is sort of the writing process?
I mainly write everything. When it comes to, I don't play guitar, so I usually hire someone to do the guitar stuff. I mix with another guy. I mix a lot of the stuff with another guy with the Dawn of Ashes stuff, and he masters it. In the past, I've worked with other people. I've worked with other producers, but lately it's just been basically me writing. I'm kind of a hard person to deal with when it comes to writing, so
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a tough thing for someone else to sort of get one's vision exactly with things. Yeah, and it's there's definitely pros and cons of dealing with other people in general, right? Either you get something that's way better than either of you could have thought of, or it's worse. And
right.
and yeah, it's disappointing when it's worse and one is not on the same page, right?
Yeah, and I just prefer to save getting a headache and not having these like expectations and then, pissing someone off, and just kind of already have it, do it, and I don't have to pick apart anything because it's just me doing it.
No, absolutely. And sort of, I guess, to wrap things up, what do you think is sort of the most beneficial strategy to newer bands trying to get into this?
I mean, for the first part, if someone really wants to do this, I mean, I've always said this, you have to put 100% into it. If you don't, you're not going to get anywhere. Or, I mean, you just have no chance of going anywhere unless you put 100% into it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can make it a hobby and everything, and that's great, but, I mean, I feel it's not really going to go anywhere if that's kind of the mentality you have. And you got to really kind of study what's going on at the current time, because everything changes all the time, so you gotta have to constantly keep up with the times, and that can be very stressful. So I mean, it's just going back to like having thick skin and understand that this is hard and stressful, but if you keep at it, it will be rewarding.
Absolutely, and I mean, I guess there's lots of hard and stressful things in life, and sometimes not doing it is hard and stressful, right? And
Right.
So in life, you got to pick your hard and stressful.
Yeah, and you need to kind of understand the reality of things. A lot of I've seen it. A lot of like bands that start out, they think they're like bigger than they really are, and they need to understand that you kind of have to work up to that. I mean, like I said, DOA has been around for 20 years and I'm nowhere near where I want to be, and it's the reality. It's just kind of, it's always working and working and working and working, and there's never a point where you're like, okay, this is it, I'm exactly where I'm at. It's just always work.
Would 15 years ago you be envious of the current you, and like in the sense that as artists our goalposts always seem to be being put further and further, and I think like way back even with myself, I'm like oh man, I had no idea what I was doing like a really long time ago, and I feel like I've even the slightest grasp now, and so yeah, what
I think
do you
kind of more
old
envious
old
of,
you
I
would
mean,
say?
I think it's both ways. I think that person would be envious of who I am now, and who I am is kind of envious of who I was before, because I feel like there's some point in me that kind of lost some of the drive that I had back then, and I like look back and I'm like, how do I get that drive again? Just because of how things are now.
For sure.
it's sometimes like I've hit walls sometime, and I know that the old version of me would just keep kind of like getting past that wall. And I don't know, I think that just comes down to like getting older, and you know, you have
we definitely all experienced that, and
you have a lot more energy when you're younger.
yeah, and sometimes also before, yeah, you just beat through the wall head first by continually smashing your head into it, and now maybe you're like, maybe there's another way. Hold on a second.
Yeah, maybe my head's a little too sore, and I'm tired of hitting my head against the wall.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a ton for joining us. The new album is seriously solid. If you're a fan of dancey industrial stuff, then you will really like it.
Thank you.
So thanks again for being here, and we will talk to y'all later.